Welcome to Soul Seeker. I'm Sam Kabert, and I'll be your guide on this journey. I started the show back in 2019, chasing answers like many of us do. But what I've come to understand is this: it's not the seeking that fulfills us. It's what we find in the quiet stillness beneath the search. When we stop chasing and learn to be with what is, we access a deeper wisdom. One that leads not to more doing, but to ease, grace, joy, and true fulfillment. My mission with this podcast is to help high performers just like yourself to regulate your nervous system, reprogram subconscious patterns, and embody emotional freedom so you can lead with clarity, resilience, and alignment. Welcome to Soul Seeker. Let's grow. What is up, fam, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seeker podcast. I am stoked you're here, and in this episode, we're really going to slow things down and talk about anxiety, talk about emotions and feeling again. My guest in this episode is Nancy Henriquez. I was lucky enough to come across her and meet her through this little mini mastermind I was in. We talk about that briefly in this episode, but really what Nancy is going to share with us is, yes, she's built all the businesses and sold them and done all those things, but she's laying down the mask of what success looks like to share with us the panic attacks that she was experiencing that really led to that success, what she did then, and how she realizes now that that disconnection from feeling can manifest in anxiety. And what the key ingredient is actually learning to feel safe again. So if that resonates with you, you're going to love this episode. If you're new to the Soul Seeker podcast, please do me a favor. I'll just take a minute. Leave the show a 5-star review. Honestly, I've been doing this pod for about 6 years now, and my mission remains the same. It's to help raise the collective consciousness from this fallen state. So if you're down with that mission and you haven't left the show a 5-star rating or a review, the easiest way to give back is to just leave a 5-star rating and review, because it helps other people to access this podcast as well, so that they can gain the wisdom from these amazing guests, just like Nancy. And also, if you haven't joined the Breath Club, that is my free online community where I lead breathwork sessions every single week. You can find the way to join the Breath Club in the show notes. Other than that, enjoy this episode with Nancy Henriquez. Here we are back again for another episode of the Soul Seeker podcast, episode number 291, with my guest today, Nancy Henriquez. And Nancy, for yourself, for me, and for all of you listening in listening land, we're going to do as we always do on this show and ground with 3 simple breaths. So you can always breathe with us, but just be mindful of your surroundings and don't close your eyes if you're not in a place to do so. But Nancy, for yourself, for me, and for those of you that can begin to slow down, I just invite you to find that comfortable seat with your feet on the floor, sitting straight up, and through your nose, inhaling all the way up, sipping in a bit more air at the top, and a big sigh, let it go. And we'll do another expansive breath, inhaling through the nose, letting the belly and the back body expand as you bring that breath all the way up. Sipping in a bit more air at the top. And as slow as you can, sighing it out, let it go, let it go. And one last one, inhaling all the way up. Sipping in a bit more air once you get to the top. Slight pause here. And a big sigh, letting it go. Letting the breath return to its natural state and rhythm, flickering the eyes back open. And here we are. Nancy, what is up? Welcome to the Soul Seeker podcast.
Hey, Sam. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for those deep breaths. As you have introduced me to breath work, I can tell you it is definitely life-changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, let's dive straight into it. So it's been really fun getting to know you. We met through Gavin Brian Boucher's group in terms of helping people to make a bigger impact in the world with whatever their area of expertise is. And we were in Dallas together, then Alabama with our little crew, and now we are here on Zoom land. So for everyone that's like, maybe not familiar with your work or what you're about, how would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I am Nancy Henriquez, first of all, and I grew up, as I like to say, in the world of IT, and that is the land that I like to stay in sometimes. And yeah, so I've learned a lot coming out of high school, directly into the workforce. Interning at a local computer repair shop. Think of Geek Squad, let's say. Before Geek Squad was a thing.
Yeah.
um, and I'd like to say I have done a lot of things in life early on. And so, starting my career right out of high school, I then started a business at the age of 22, a computer repair shop that I then grew for 8 years, sold it, and have continued on since then to just learn more about business. I've sold several businesses since then, and now I help other business owners, specifically those within the IT space, grow their leadership skills and as well as their business acumen in order to grow their businesses and be able to exit where and when they want.
Important. Yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing. And I definitely see like a lot of parallels between like your entrepreneurial drive and my own, definitely different industries. But one of the questions I have for you is like, these days, entrepreneurship really gets like glorified, right? But when we started our businesses respectively, like that wasn't the case. What are some of the larger challenges that you've faced in your entrepreneurial journey?
Hmm. That is such a good question. So it's mindset. It's all about mindset, right? And so for me, the moment where I realized that the business growth was directly attached to my mindset
Mm,
growth was when things really start to turn around for me in my business. Like I said, going directly from high school to the workforce, I did not have any kind of business education. So everything that I did, I learned through either experience, Googling, or seeing others around me. And now I'm recognizing the fact that for me, the biggest change was when I was introduced to not just that business education, but a community that was behind that and that was able to support me in multiple ways as I would get into the the dirt of what it takes to grow your mindset and grow your business.
yeah, absolutely. I can appreciate that. So take us back to like one of those times in your life. Maybe it wasn't with your business, but just in your one of those times in your life where you're facing like a dark night of the soul, or just going through something extremely challenging. Could you share that with us?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the business side of things just because it's so directly tied to everything that I went through. And so for me, I was a ball of anxiety.
Mm,
Still am in certain cases. um, but let me take you back 10 years. So 10 years ago, it was right before I turned 30. It's 29. I had been growing this business that I had felt uncomfortable with. At some point in time, I started to get very uncomfortable.
mm,
And that's when I started to realize, okay, there is a lot more involved when it comes to growing a business than it is just the business aspect of it. It was my own limitations are going to stop me from growing this business. And so I had to then realize that it was the personal side of stuff, the personal anxieties that I needed to deal with or be able to overcome in order to then be able to grow my business. So
Mhm.
10 years ago, I would not drive on my own because I would have a panic attack every time I would get under or behind the steering wheel.
Mhm.
Um, when I did drive, it was local, all in my suburban area, never outside the city. And so during this moment in time when I was starting to get uncomfortable with myself and where my business was at, and I had no idea what was next, where to go next for any of that help, it was it was in the moment where I got the help. It was this program that was an MBA program that fast forwards you an MBA program in 3 months, basically.
Wow.
I needed to apply, and then I needed to go through an interview process to then be accepted. And
Mhm.
so the interview process was like a Shark Tank pitch almost. And so here I am, a ball of anxiety. Never have I driven myself out of my suburban town. And in order to get to that interview, it was downtown Houston, and I needed to drive myself there.
Which
So
for everyone listening, like, how far is that for context?
that was about a 45-minute drive
Okay, got it.
on
Yeah.
the highway, on multiple highways. So I was already like in a mental space of like, oh my God, I'm going to have a panic attack and I know it.
Mhm.
And then if you've ever been in Houston, when it's raining, it's not just rain, it's torrential pouring rain. And that's exactly what happened on my way there.
Mm.
And so I get there and I am having a panic attack. I stay in the parking lot to calm myself, calm my nerves a little bit. Maybe I should have known about breath work then.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, but I get there and I tell myself, if I do not get into that building and up that elevator, I will not know what's on the other side. And I will not know how to change at the
Mhm.
end of the day. Because I didn't know what I would need in order to change.
Mhm.
And so that was the very first thing, realizing that it's my own anxieties that is going to stop me from doing what I need, what I feel called to do, if I don't overcome that. And so that was a moment where it was like, holy crap, I have to actually get out of this car uh, and work through the panic while making sure that, I'm answering questions about my business that are like deep questions. And so it was one challenge after another, but it all started off with I have to get out of this panic mode in
Mhm.
order to be able to receive any other knowledge that I need in order to progress. So that
Yeah.
was huge.
Yeah, so how did you work through that panic attack? Like, what did you do back then when it sounds like you might not have had, like, a ton of tools, so, what'd that look like?
I called my ex-husband.
Mhm.
Well, he was my husband at the time. And so I called him and he helped me in grounding me at that moment and providing some support to be able to even get to that door. So I remember that conversation. And if he hadn't said, like, hey, you did it, you drove yourself there, like, first of all, celebrate that.
Mhm.
Um, you can do hard things and you can go up that elevator and you can literally go through that interview. And so it was helpful in that moment to have that support.
Yeah.
Someone recognize the fact that, man, it is something so hard that you are putting yourself through. And it's okay. You're going to survive.
Totally, yeah, and, panic attacks, like, it seems like maybe that was a ongoing theme, at least at that point in your life, but did that stem from, like, your early childhood where you would have panic attacks?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so in my childhood, it's funny enough. It's funny that we're going there because the experience that I've had lately, and you talked about working with Brian and Gab. So I have been going through what I feel is my next level journey. And it's reminding me a lot of what I went through 10 years ago, in the beginning of this journey for me, and realizing that there is so much attached to what I went through as a kid, um, and how that has truly impacted my limited beliefs, um, and the what we carry with us, not just personally, but how it also affects us at work, and what we carry in all of those things. And so, Father's Day, just recently, I was able to have a 1 hour long conversation with my father that I have not had in a very, very long time. And what I learned from that conversation, the realization that came from that, and the experience of everything that I've been going through lately, was that I did not have any safety
Mm.
from very, very young. Um, I needed to provide that safety for myself. And I didn't learn to do that until recently.
Mm.
And so that's it's huge, huge to realize, like, how often you carry that with you, and how that also affects your body, and your mind, your body, obviously, in those senses. But yeah, it was huge.
Can feel that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your heart with us. I always appreciate when we're able to go there. So thank you for going there. And it sounds like it must have been a very impactful conversation with your father. And I think what could really help people listening is just hearing you reflect on how coming to that realization of not feeling safe in your early childhood, how that made an impact through all these other events in your life until you finally started to realize that just recently, right? Now you can probably see how that made an impact. Can you talk about how that impacted other areas of your life, not feeling safe?
Yeah, I mean, it affected my marriage, how I parent, um, how how I show up at work, the confidence level that you have in general. It impacts so much, and that's the part that I didn't realize the depth of
Mhm.
that, until just recently, and how if I can't feel safe in my own mind, if I can't provide that safety for myself, how can I then provide that space or have that space for others to also feel safe with me?
Mhm.
And so I can't help others if I can't help myself. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, if I also don't know how to protect myself, my energy, in also a way where, because providing safety for me also ended up being overcompensating for others.
Mhm.
And if I don't find that balance, then I also can't provide that safety for myself, which then again provides that safety for others.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And just tying the safety back to anxiety, like, have you noticed that you have okay, most of us do, right? I'm not singling you out, myself included here, but most of us are so like disconnected and disassociated from your feelings. Have you noticed, like, through your life, how you've been disconnected from a lot of the ways you feel and don't really allow yourself to feel them?
Oh, 100%. And that leads to decision making that
Mm.
isn't aligned with who you are, who you truly are, right? It becomes decisions based off of what makes you think you are safe in others' worlds, I guess, is the best place to say that, which leads to people pleasing. And so that definitely affected so much. And you like, how do I, like, what are the right words here?
Mhm.
um Yeah, it's a whole other level, and the fact that it affects so much. Like now looking back, I think of the relationship, my marriage. I was 16 when we got together. He was 16. 18 when we got married. So very quick timeline in that sense. And I realize now that I never trusted him.
Mm.
And I never trusted him because I wasn't safe in my own mind. So I didn't have the capacity to trust him.
If I can't trust myself, how can I trust anyone else?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And thinking back to that, I think of arguments, I think of conversations that we had, I think of decisions that I made that I would not make today. Knowing that if I trusted my mind then, I would have made other decisions that may not have put us in certain situations throughout life. And now that I think about it, it's more so, it's not like I regret it because I don't, because it was a relationship that brought so much to my life in that moment, including my kids. But there's also a lot to learn from that, to go back and to say like, oh wow, if I didn't have if I had that safety with myself back then, I could have made these choices. And so now, how do I go back and help others find that safety for themselves so that they can avoid certain decisions that aren't aligned with who they are?
That's awesome. And how can you help others in that kind of way?
Oh, well, it's truly understanding and knowing and being vulnerable within yourself. I think that's the biggest thing that I found for myself. It was like, stop disassociating, get in that dirt, get into the ugliness of it, to deal with the feelings that you need to deal with, that you're carrying with you in order for you to lighten that burden for yourself and have more capacity for the people that you want to help. So for me, that looks like, one, realizing that I'm really good at putting a lot of pieces together. So I tend to see things that others may not, just because I put pieces together in a certain way. Maybe it does come from life experience, right? In certain situations. And not being able to trust myself, I learned that there are some dark corners that you don't want to go to in your mind. And that's okay sometimes. But if you don't, then you are not able to fully open up and see, where do you need to improve in life, in your own mind. Like, where do you need to gain confidence? Where do you need to truly work on like aspects of yourself, in order for you to then be able to even find your calling? Like, that was the aspect for me. I was not able to find clarity within my mind, as opposed to like, in the sense of answering, who am I supposed to help? Well, it's actually people that were like me, that 10 years ago, where I was 10 years ago, that are, that find themselves in a situation where they started a business, they, for whatever reasons, with whatever skills they had, and now they're lacking the next set of skills to be able to carry on to the next place. And so that's where I find myself now, in the sense of I had to go through all of those fires, get into that dirt, to be able to recognize or find who was it that I was supposed to help. And that comes from a lot of self-reflection.
Hey, it's Sam. Can I share something real quick that I think might actually help you? If you've ever felt overwhelmed by your emotions, like you're doing all the right things, yet you still feel off, it's not because you're broken. Most of us were never taught how to feel in a way that actually helps us heal. That's why I created Breath Club, a free community where I guide weekly breathwork sessions to help you regulate your nervous system, process emotions, and return to clarity. We use something called the 90-second reset, a simple, science-backed practice that shows how fast emotions shift when you allow yourself to feel them fully. You'll get access to live calls, a community, and on-demand breathwork exercises to reset anytime. No pressure, just an invitation to feel safe in your body again. Links in the show notes if you want to join us. Yeah, absolutely. And I see this theme of acceptance, and I'm a huge fan of acceptance and surrender. In fact, it's the fourth step of the breath method, what I teach. And so often people just try to go straight to positive talk and mindset. And that's just toxic positivity if we're not allowing ourselves to go and access those dark spots and places. And to your point, you have to be vulnerable enough to feel it. Yet, how do we actually get there, right? To that stage of acceptance and surrender, because it can oftentimes feel scary. So I'm curious, like for your younger self, since that's the people that you're helping, right? That previous version of yourself, like what's that piece of advice that you could offer someone listening that is trying to get to that stage of acceptance?
The very first thing is look for ways to find safety in your own mind, and where in the areas that you do not have safety in your own mind, look for someone that can help provide that safety for you. And that's where the magic really truly starts to happen, because it allows you to get into the dirt. Um, and I keep saying that. And when I say that, there's a particular flower. For those that have cameras and are watching, wait, this wrong arm. So the calla lily. For those that don't know, the calla lily is a beautiful flower, and it grows in the dirt that's made of volcanoes, like the most harshest environments that you could think of. And yet this beautiful flower grows in that harsh environment. And when I think about getting into the dirt, I think about that. It's that hard work that you don't want to do, but it's actually the nutrients that you need in order to blossom. And so that's the biggest takeaway that I would say is find safety. If you can't find it on your own, find someone that will help you, that will guide you to finding that safety for yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that too with the calla lily. Yeah. And it reminds me of what one of the yoga instructors here in town will often say, and many yoga instructors will: no mud, no lotus.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
very,
yeah.
very similar. Well, shifting gears a little bit, getting into like where you are now with writing your book and moving forward with your message of the sustainability of change. Like now hearing your story, all of us hearing your story and being able to see you deeper, it makes so much sense to see how you're speaking and you're all about change really and transformation. So could you share a little bit of that with us?
Yeah. So this actually, I have a story for you, and this actually is credit to you.
Okay, cool. We love stories, and that's great.
um, so as I'm writing my book, and working with Brian and Gab from the expert school and all of that, it has gotten me to the area of how can you save other people time through the life lessons you've already learned, right? And for me, it became about proactively changing, choosing to change before change chooses you.
Mm,
And the reason why is because when change hits you, it is so much harder to go through that in that moment, as opposed to thinking about it ahead of time and being able to plan for that change. It's going to be hard regardless, but if you can put safeguards in place because you know that change is coming, then it becomes an easier process to go through. And if you bring others to along with you as part of that change, then it doesn't become lonely and it's not so hard. But that's the key to that. And so the story for me is, you have taught me about breath work. You've introduced me to that. And there was, I attended one of your classes, and through that breath work, I realized I started crying. And that moment, it was kind of like an unlocking. Oh my God, I can release this tension, release this anxiety that I feel on my own, before it becomes a problem. So it's the proactive change aspect of it that was like, oh my God, this is like, what a breakthrough. And so before I went on to, we talked about recently being at book camp together. I'm sorry, at a speaker camp together. So I went through a book camp after that, and then I went to a conference after that. I knew that my energy was going to be just drained, and I knew that if I didn't allow myself to process some of what I was feeling before going to this event, it was going to hit me before. It was going to hit me at a time where it was not going to be convenient. And so I was able to do some breath work on my own. I like cried like a baby, like those guttural cries. I allowed myself to do that, to get to that point, to release some of that tension. And oh my God, I felt so much better. And I was able to handle everything that was being thrown at me throughout these events, at the same time as dealing with some personal challenges that I'm going through with my kids, and everything that life throws at you. And that was for me like the realization that I can choose to change before change chooses me, over and over again, in a way that it does not have to be as uncomfortable as it was the first time that I went through it.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't have to relive it, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's so huge that we don't have to relive it. So often we think we need to re-experience or even know what the thing is, because anytime we experience these emotions, it's just an association. That's literally all a trigger is. It's
Exactly.
associating with that other event. But when we get it to the root, we release the charge. And that's what we do through MER. You probably came to one of the MER sessions. I don't remember. I
Yes.
think so. Yeah,
Yes.
cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that shift. That's all. I'd love to hear this. And in terms of like breath work, since we're going there, and nervous system regulation stacked with subconscious reprogramming, like you hadn't really experienced breath work before?
I had not. I had
Oh,
not.
wow.
So, well, and I say that I had, but not to this extent, and I hadn't thought about it in that way. So I started going through therapy a few years ago, and I did several types of different types of therapies, um, but not like this. Not as intentional,
Mhm.
I would say, in this way. And so it was definitely a reintroduction in a new way for me.
Yeah, it's funny because like breath work, right? Like I have a friend who's a breath work practitioner, and like her thing is like, we're always doing breath work because we're breathing. And I'm like, well, I don't
It's not
resonate
the
with that.
same.
Yeah, exactly, right? And oh, we do breath work in meditation or like yoga classes, and there's so like breath work is just such a broad term. Like, what does it mean, right? Like in one of the sessions you did with me, I think you came a couple of times, right? Yeah, we probably did circular connected in and out of the mouth, right?
Yep.
yeah, usually today's session at the time I'm recording, we didn't do any of that. Each session's going to be a little bit different, so it's hard to remember. But yeah, just taking like those 20 minutes or so to really like be with yourself. And I'm curious, since it was a newer practice for you, and obviously you're an entrepreneur, you're a high performer, and you're a go-getter. You know, you're talking about your book you're gonna write, and you're a speaker and all these things. And for high performers and go-getters, it's so much easier to have like one experience and be like, okay, I know what to do, I'll go do it on my own. Because a lot of people aren't able to do that. Like, what really gave you the tools and the confidence to be like, okay, I just experienced this a couple of times and now I can do this on my own?
Um, well, I don't know if I'm doing it right. So
Well, you felt better, so I guess you
I
are
did.
doing
I
it.
felt
Yeah.
better. So it helped. But I think for me it was just the realization that like, oh, I how do I put it? So I've gone to therapy, and I had gotten to a place where I felt like my mind, I'm in control of my mind again. But now my body doesn't necessarily listen to my mind. And so my body is still reacting as if I'm having full-blown panic attacks when I'm not anymore. And so realizing like, oh, I can do something that actually addresses what my body's feeling, even though my mind is calm. That was the realization for me of, okay, how do I continue to do this for myself? And I guess because you are an entrepreneur and you're kind of like going at and you work at different hours and different times, it's kind of like, how do I figure out how to do this for myself when it's convenient for me? And so that was really the what led me to that, was just like that realization of, okay, I can do this on demand, first of all, which is great. And then I can do it at a convenient time. Even if I'm doing it wrong, I can start somewhere because it is helping me feel better and reconnect with my body in that sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I know for me, probably similar to you, just learning about the 90-second rule, which teaches that our body has a 90-second physiological response when we experience emotion. What Nancy's saying, basically, we have that thought, and thoughts are the language of the mind that sends signal to the body, and feelings are the language of the body. And then most of us subconsciously disassociate, we distract and numb and avoid that feeling. So we get caught in the mind. So just realizing, oh, wow, that thought sends a signal to the body, which creates a feeling. And now if I allow myself to feel that feeling in as little as 2 minutes, I can move through it. Like, that is so liberating. Like, that was probably played a big part, just like learning about that, I imagine.
Oh yeah, and that's not to say that it's easy to get
Mhm.
to those 2 minutes right away. Like, especially when you're a speaker, you know that 2 minutes can be a long time.
Yeah.
But even just starting it out and letting yourself, you said the word submit, and that is that has been the trigger word lately for me, is realizing you have to actually submit, to be able to receive. But in order to submit, you have to have a sense of safety. And from where was I going with this? Because I totally
Keep
lost my
going. Keep going.
my
Keep
train of
talking.
thought when it came
Keep
to that
talking.
aspect of
Yeah.
it. But so for 2 minutes, especially when it's your first time, that is like, it is hard to sit there with yourself for 2 minutes. Um, so it's like, even if it's 30 seconds to
Mhm.
start off with, it's okay. Breathe those 30 seconds, let yourself be in those 30 seconds, think 30 seconds at a time until you get to the 2 minutes. But that's where, like, it is hard at the very beginning, um, to
It
let
is.
your mind be.
It is hard, and that's why we do the circular connected breath, because that can be helpful to shut down the prefrontal cortex of the thinking mind, right? And it gives us something to do too, like sometimes counting breath, right? But what's really helpful is just saying relax And I think of it kind of like, not to anchor Zoolander into your bodies and give you a laugh anytime you hear anchor or hear relax, but like I almost go back to the movie Zoolander, which has been coming up a lot for me recently. But relax, and then it just sends this signal to your nervous system, and you can even say it in your mind's eye with like, not a necessarily funny voice, but just like focusing on like relax, and extending it and letting that help your nervous system to calm down. And then just a few mantras of like, it's safe to feel, I am safe, right? And then as you're inhaling and exhaling, working with those mantras, all of a sudden you just start to soften. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's the cool little tangent there about breath work, always down for that. Talk to us more about change. Like, this is going to be what your book is about, right? Is that right?
Yep.
Cool. So how's the book writing process going?
Oh my God, it is so hard. Who said writing a book was going to be easy? Did anyone say that?
I did. I do. Just me.
Yeah, right. And since I'm in technology, I'm like, oh, well, I'll just use AI, and it's going to be so easy to go through. Yeah, no, it is a process, and it just like building a business, building a book is such a process and such a deep work process. In order for you to come out in the end with something that you are proud of and that makes a difference and has an impact for others, you got to do some deep work. And so that's where I've been, and I'm loving it. That's a huge part for me right now has been, as much as I'm healing all at the same time, I'm pouring that back into this book, and just as much as the work that I'm doing. And yeah, it's phenomenal. It's weird because I remember a time where when I was going through change, and that felt like so uncomfortable, and nobody likes it, right? But you got to go through it, and realizing for me this time around that the good and the bad come together. That process, understanding that, has been incredible, because I realized that I am continuously learning to improve or to change before it chooses me again, because it is inevitable. And so I'm also putting that into my book. What are some ways that you can be aware of the changes that are coming, that are in front of you, and what are then the safeguards that you can put in place in order to proactively make that change, make that transition. And so my book, it starts off with starting with the mindset change. You have to lead yourself through change before you can lead others. And you can't transform your business without first transforming yourself. And that's the main basis of the book itself. And then I go on to the other tactics, the actual tactical work of transforming your business, and what that looks like.
Pause. You're holding your breath again, aren't you? Most high performers don't need more doing. They need a nervous system reset. I'm Sam Kaber, and I'm a keynote speaker and nervous system coach, helping people just like yourself to reset from burnout and return to clarity. I've worked with organizations and audiences ready to move beyond burnout and into embodying clarity. My keynotes blend storytelling, subconscious reprogramming, and live breathwork experiences that get people out of their heads and back into their lives. If you're planning a conference, retreat, or leadership event and want something that doesn't just inspire, but actually transforms, head to the link in the show notes. Let's make your next event unforgettable. Awesome. So in terms of like preparing for change, what are some ways, and you might still be exploring them because I totally respect and understand the writing process and how it's fluid. But if is anything that you could share in terms of preparing for change, I think that could be really useful.
Yeah. So one of the very first things that I say is you need to have clarity to prepare for change. So you need to come outside of your bubble that most of us entrepreneurs are in when we're running our businesses, and step outside of that. And this applies not only in business but in life too. Like you got to step outside of your life to see what's going on outside of your immediate world. What are the external factors that are going to be bringing change about? And so that's the very first thing that you have to you have to deal with or do is take a step back, a step up, I would say,
Mhm.
and be able to find that clarity. There are some tools, some great tools to be able to help you find that clarity. The brochets have one of those tools, the purpose factor assessment. It's something that I used for my own clarity in that sense. Um, and then beyond that, it's an understanding and knowing who you are meant to help, whether that be for your business or in life. The people that you have direct impact on, whether that be someone that you know directly or not. It's just others that resonate with you, and then you start to look at what are then your skills and your capabilities that make you different than what else is out there. So I can go into a few other steps, but the main ones are those.
That's awesome. And what's coming up for me is this piece of the brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Have you heard about that?
That is a big word. What?
It's such a big word, right? But these days, it seems like more and more of us are just getting so fascinated by neuroscience. And I know, like, this podcast started super woo, super esoteric, all the things. And for longtime listeners, they'll probably remember and see and recognize like how much more grounded in science I am and this podcast is now versus how it used to be. And part of that is my own fascination, but the other part of that is it makes it more accessible for other people. Because like how many times have we heard like just do hard things? And a part of what I'm hearing from you is like do hard things. Like that's what is coming through and the vibration of what you're saying. And we all know anyone that has challenged themselves to do that thing that they don't want to do, how much better you feel afterwards, whatever that thing was for you. And what I love is learning about the brain and the specific piece of the brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, which took me a while to remember remember
Okay,
how to
big
say it.
to say.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, or like transient hypofrontality, something else, right? But the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, learning about that and be like, wow, that's the piece of the brain that grows when you do hard things. It helps with motivation, with resilience, it pressure under stress. And learn all of this from Dr. Andrew Huberman, by the way. And what's really fascinating to me is like I've heard so many times, like with ice baths or cold plunges, like it doesn't get easier, you just get stronger. And I've heard that. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't resonate with me. It just feels like it's getting easier. And one of the ways that Dr. Huberman explained this is like, for example, if you're doing your cold baths or your ice plunge, whatever, your cold plunge or your ice bath, I got flipped there, dyslexia, right? But if you're doing it, it gets easier. You're no longer building that piece of the brain, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. You have to continuously challenge yourself. And when it starts to get like, oh, well, it used to be challenging, but now it's kind of easier, it's not as much. So that is such a great thing for me, at least, to like prepare for change, right? Because when times get tough, it's like, okay, now not only do I have my practices and tools, but I've also been preparing for that, you know?
Yep, exactly. Exactly, 100%. And that's I feel like that is the journey of healing ultimately. This time around, I feel like I have closed so many loops for
Mm,
myself. As I'm preparing myself for what I feel is another level of awareness of myself, of those around me, and that kind of thing. And it is insane to realize how much my brain has changed.
Totally. Well, Nancy, as we begin to start to slow this down and wrap this up, like in terms of your book, like how, what's the process looking like? Like how long do you anticipate it taking from where you're at now to publishing?
Well, I've got some very aggressive goals when it comes to publishing. My goal is to have a published book by my 20. I keep saying 29. I keep taking 10 years off of my life because I feel like I have had 10 years taken off of my life lately. Um,
Biologically, 10 years younger biologically.
right? Yeah. My goal is to have my book published by my 39th birthday, which is in September.
Okay, cool. And the time of this recording, it's mid-June. So where are you at now in the actual like writing process?
Yeah, so I'm a few chapters in, and writing daily. Ugh. It is some work.
What keeps you showing up even when you don't want to do it?
Honestly, it's myself, the person that I was 10 years ago. And I think of all of the people that may be in a similar situation and feeling the exact same way. And for me to be able to put something in the world, out into the world, that can help them shave a bunch of time off, or years, like that's the driving force, is how can I save somebody else the pains of what I went through, um, or help them find the inspiration to go through the hard things themselves. And so that is the driving force.
I love it. I love it. And then final question in terms of the book, like what does your writing space look like?
So I have ADHD. um, so my writing space is everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. And sometimes I get into this mode where I need space and silence, and I need just to be in an environment where it is like basically my house, right? A room in my house. And then there are days where it's like, I can't be in this corner and I need to go out, and I will go write at a coffee shop, or things like that. So it's not so much the area for me, because that changes, it bounces with my ADHD. But it's more so of being in the mindset, and ready to write. And that's really where I go.
100%. Yeah, I've written 6 books now, and my fourth, I don't want to say it's always going to be like my baby and my favorite, right? But that was like my deepest, and that one took me 3 years to write, because I was learning to slow down. I could have easily written it, but kind of to your point, it was like it was laying it marinate and evolve. And I mean, I've written that book from Santa Cruz to Morro Bay to Costa Rica to all over the world, and just so many different explorations of life. And when I wrote my last book, Overcome the Overwhelm, I was watching a master class with an author. I didn't know who he was, and I don't recall his name, but the class was teaching how to write fiction books, because I wanted to write my first fiction book, and I didn't know anything about it. And one of the things the guy was saying is like, show up to every day, write your book and whatever else. And I was like, yeah, I used to do that with my old books. I should build that discipline muscle again. And it was wild. It was probably like January of 2024. Every day I would go to the beach, I would do my breath work, I would meditate, I would go inside the ocean, do my ocean plunge, January in California, whatever, it's still cold, right? And in the mornings, then I'd come back and I'd write, and it was just like, that was the first time in the writing process where I literally felt like I was channeling, like it was just coming through me. Every other time it was like, okay, sometimes I'll show up and I'll write a few words and I'll just stare at the screen, you know, but writer's block did end up hitting me, I think about 70-80% of the way through the book, but the majority of it really was just flowing through me. It was an incredible experience. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I did go to the conference after boot camp, and it was during that conference, actually the CEO of the company that was hosting the conference gave a keynote that talked directly to the topic of my book, and that just excited me even more to write and to realize like it's the right time. And when something feels like it is the right time, you better fucking write.
Ah, that's a good place to mic drop. There we go. Well, Nancy, thank you. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you sharing your journey with us, sharing your heart, and providing some actionable tools for folks. So thank you so much. And for all y'all listening that want to get in touch with Nancy, make sure you go to the show notes. Nancy, thank you so much again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast to the very end. I hope you enjoyed this episode just as much as I did. I really enjoyed this conversation with my dude, Bill, here. And if you want to go deeper with Bill, you can check out the show notes. And as always, if you would like to connect with me more, the best way to do so is through my free Breath Club. And you can find the link to join in the show notes. I will see you on the next episode of the Soul Seekr podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the very end. I hope you dug this podcast just as much as I enjoyed it. If you got anything at all, please, if you could just do me a favor and leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to this podcast, it helps the show grow. So thank you for considering to leave a review. If you want to go deeper with Sultara or Elan, you can find the links to connect with them in the show notes. And if you want to work with me, the best way to work with me, the easiest way to work with me is the free way, and that's by joining the Breath Club. The link to the Breath Club is in the show notes. And also know that I'm available for one-on-one support, that is coaching and guidance, as well as keynotes and breathwork journeys for conferences and events. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next episode of the Soul Seekr.